Hey there friends, it's Liz from the Peacock Homestead. In today's video, I'm going to be making a raclette cheese. A raclette cheese is a melting cheese and it's a Swiss and a French cheese. So I can't wait to show you guys that. And I'll also be heading in the kitchen and I'll be making a few things from scratch. So if you're into that kind of thing, let's get into the video. These are my elderflowers. They'll turn into elderberries soon, but I really want to harvest the flowers because I love making tea with it, and I'd like to try to make a cordial with it this year and maybe something fancy like an ice cream or something. I think it has such a wonderful scent. It's something you'll definitely never forget. The bees have been loving this, and I think the deer tried a little taste, but they didn't like it, thank goodness. So let's get into the raclette cheese. So I got this recipe from 200 Easy Homemade Cheese Recipes, and it's on page 196. And I'm going to start heating up 4 gallons of milk to about 88 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 31 degrees Celsius. And then I'm going to get my cultures in. So I'm using what you call bacterium linens, and that's a ripening bacteria. I also have Flora danica, which is a mesophilic culture. So I have a pinch of the bacterium linens, and I have a half a teaspoon of mesophilic culture. And I'm gonna let that marinate, and then I'm gonna go in and stir that. So I let that kind of rehydrate for 2 minutes, and then I gave it a stir, and now I'm adding my calcium chloride. For the calcium chloride, I am going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of that, and I'm going to mix it into 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. So I'm just using my well water, and I'll go ahead and give that a nice stir. And then I can go ahead and add my liquid rennet, and it's going to be the same as a calcium chloride, about 3/4 teaspoon. And then I'm mixing that in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. And then I'm going to cover it up and let it sit for 40 minutes so it can coagulate and get nice and hard. And then we'll come back and see if we have a clean break. All right, it's time to check this and see if we have a clean break. It looks super promising. I like the way that looks. You see how it looks like jello a little bit? So we're gonna go ahead and cut this in a grid pattern, and then I was gonna take a whisk and kind of run my whisk gently through the curd to make pea-size shapes. And then I'm gonna let that rest for about 5 minutes, and we'll come back and slowly start stirring the cheese. So raclette cheese, in this recipe, it calls for you to wash the curds. So what I'm essentially doing is taking half of the way out to the curd line, and then I'm adding hot water around 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's going to make a nice, beautiful, smooth, sweet tasting cheese. So right now I'm stirring and bringing my temperature up to about 100 degrees, and then I'm going to kind of maintain that temperature, and then I'll show you how I wash the curds. All right, so we're going to take half of the whey out, and I'm reserving it later for a ricotta. So I'm just going to make a little bit of ricotta from this. I don't get that much, but I do get enough to make a nice little breakfast casserole or an omelet or something. It is super delicious, and I don't want to waste the whey. So this water is right out of my tap. I have well water, and it's around 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm just slowly pouring that in, and I'm going to stir that for another 20 to 30 minutes. And after that is done being stirred for about 20 to 30 minutes, I'm checking here to see if it comes together nicely. It looks like it is coming together nicely, and it's not splooging out of my hands, and it's breaking apart really well there. So now I asked the hubs to help me drain all of that whey. It's actually kind of a diluted way, but there is the mass of curds. And now I'm going to get this into my cheese press. And I'm just using my large cheese mold. Making sure to get all the way out and then carefully placing it into my mold. And then we're going to press this for a little bit of pressure for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going for 10 to 15 pounds of pressure. Just so the bottom of the cheese mold is kind of weeping lightly. A nice clear liquid, and that's just the way. And now it's time to flip it its first time. And I'll just have it press for a little bit longer this time for a little bit harder of a pressure. And then we'll do it one more time after that, and that'll be overnight. It looks like it's knitting together really well. That's just the first press, and it's going to come together much nicer, you'll see. So I'll show you that. This is my whey that I had reserved. So all I did was add a 1/4 cup of white distilled vinegar, and then I'm just gonna scrape the ricotta off the top. And if you don't have a little cheese basket, which I have right here, you can use just a bowl and have a cheesecloth, and that'll catch all of that deliciousness. And then I'm gonna wait till it cools and pop it in the fridge and save it to make another meal. I've actually used this to make breakfast casseroles. I'll just pop that on the top, and I've used it for goulashes and omelets. It is really tasty. All right, now I have to think about what we're having for dinner. So I decided to make some fried chicken with some chicken thighs. I have some saltine crackers, eggs, and flour. And I'm gonna go ahead and get this all breaded up and going in my cast iron pan. And this turned out super delicious. I actually salted and peppered the chicken before I breaded it, but saltine crackers are the bee's knees. They've been turning out so good, and my husband and I are really enjoying them. They're super crunchy and delicious, and you can't even tell they're saltines. It comes out really wonderful, so I'll keep on doing that. And in the past, I've used breadcrumbs. I've also used my own homemade breadcrumbs for my sourdough bread. And I've used panko, and this is the best it's ever turned out with saltine crackers. So I'm gonna get those frying, and I cut up some potatoes here, and I just cut them in little squares, and I'm gonna bake those in the oven as well. And then I have a little salad from my garden. It's just a bunch of mixed greens, and that's gonna go with our dinner tonight. And this is what dinner looks like. We have our fried chicken, our mixed salad, and some potatoes. So we really enjoyed this, and we had leftovers the next day, and they were delicious too. And I decided to make some chocolate chip cookies, but this time I added a little bit of coarse salt to the top, and they turned out amazing. It was my husband's idea, so he gets the credit. Now we are doing a second flip, so I'm just going to take this cheese out of the press, and I'm going to flip it, and then put it back in the press, and it's gonna press overnight. So let's see how this turned out. It's starting to look like something. It looks really wonderful. Like actually it looks like the moon. But we are going to press this overnight at a heavier weight. So I'm going to press it for around 8 to 12 hours on 50 to 60 pounds of pressure, just to make sure all the whey is out. And then we will come back to it in the morning. And I'm actually going to get these cookies put away and get my kitchen cleaned up. And we'll get back to this in the morning. All right, now it's time to take a look at this. It's the next morning, and I'm going to put it in my saturated brine. So I have some saturated brine here in a gallon glass jar, and we're going to pop this in for 20 hours, and I'm going to salt the top. I'm using a canning salt, and if you go to get salt, in all these recipes it says to use cheese salt, but in actuality cheese salt is just regular sea salt. So I'm using canning salt, which I trust from Mrs. Wages, and I usually get that at Walmart in bulk. And look how beautiful that looks. It looks like the moon. And wait till you see what this looks like after 8 to 12 weeks. It's going to be amazing. So with this cheese, it's going to be a washed cheese. After 3 days, I have to wash the cheese with a cloth dipped in brine solution and turn it over. And then I'll wash the cheese every second day thereafter for 1 month. And a reddish smear will develop on the rind. And then I will continue to ripen and turning and washing the cheese twice weekly. And then a brownish reddish rind will form and then continue to develop and ripen on the cheese. And then I'll ripen this for about 8 to 12 weeks, and then we'll get to taste it. The air drying process is complete, so I let it air dry, and I flipped it once or twice a day for a couple days. And now I'm going to get it in its ripening box, and all I use for a ripening box is a cake saver. A short one, because one of those big cake savers with a dome would not fit in my cheese cave. So I put a little cheese mat underneath, and I'm popping it in my cake saver. And then we'll continue on with the next process, which is our affinage, which is washing the cheese and letting it ripen. So this is going right into my cheese cave with my other creations. And I'm super excited about this. It's going to be a beautiful melting cheese. This week I wanted to prep a little, so I made some sourdough biscuits, and this is on my blog, this recipe on the peacockhomestead.com. I like to make a batch of biscuits and then keep them in the freezer. And tonight I am going to be making a stick to your ribs meal. So I'm making sausage gravy and biscuits, and they turned out really amazing. They fluffed right up, and a couple of them, like the other batch that I had to put together, was a little bit flat, but that's fine. It tastes delicious. It tastes the same. So I'm going to pop these all in the freezer when they cool off, and tonight we are going to have a nice meal. It was a little effort to make the biscuits, but the gravy is super easy. I'll show you that. And of course I have helpers, my little bee. And these are my chickens. I had to up my game and put them in a larger container, and they're getting so big. They're starting to look like teenagers already, and they're super sweet. Oh my goodness, they are so loving. But look how big they're getting. They're getting their little back feathers. They look like little velociraptors. So I'll eventually acclimate them outside with the dog kennel there that I have around them, and so that bigger chickens can't be mean to them, so I'll just have to do that a little bit at a time. And I also decided that I was going to make some pumpkin bread. I used canned pumpkin for this recipe, and all I did was acclimate my Homestead banana bread recipe in with the pumpkin bread. So I exchanged the bananas and apples for pumpkin, and I only used 2 cups of my pumpkin puree, and 1 loaf was plain, and the other loaf, of course, I had to add chocolate chips. So I'm gonna get those popped in the oven, and we're gonna start on the sausage gravy. So I have some sausage browning. It's actually hamburger sausage from Walmart. They mix hamburger and sausage, so that's going to be really delicious. And I added some milk, flour, and I also added some chicken bouillon seasoning. I know that's weird, but it tastes so good. So that adds a little extra flavor to that. And then I'm going to get it all nice and thick, and then it'll be ready to serve. So all that work for just a little sausage biscuit with gravy on it, but it was super amazing, and it actually filled us up, and we were happy with that. And then the freezer biscuits are in the freezer, and we can just take them as we go, so it'll be quick and easy for us. And that's what dinner looked like this night. And the bread came out so amazing. It popped right up, and I can't wait to try this tonight. I wish you guys had smell-o-vision because it smells so delicious. It smells like the fall when everyone's cooking all those delicious pumpkin desserts. So I wanted to show you guys, I harvested my collard greens. They look a little young, but the deer have been really going crazy in our garden, and I'll have to show you that next video. But I had to clip that all off, and I'll even use all the stems for a stir fry. So I got 2 gallon bags and a half of a gallon bag, and I've just been using them for salads, and we've been having tacos and whatnot. They're super delicious. But I wanted to make sure they didn't get into anything else. I just wanted to thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me with my homestead happenings. I hope you have a blessed week, and I'll see you on the next one, friends.